I did not stop because I'm a hero. I stopped because I saw a little girl standing in the rain with eyes like my daughter's, cold, tired, and trying so hard not to cry. That was the moment everything changed, not just for them. For me too. If you believe that kindness can echo across lifetimes and that even broken people can help each other heal, then stay with me. Because this is the story of what happened the night I turned on the porch light and never turned it off. The rain was not just falling. It was coming down like the sky was tired of holding itself together. I could barely see through the windshield. My wipers squeaked back and forth like they were begging for a break. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I was not in a hurry, just tired, bone-deep tired. Sophie was half asleep in the back seat, her head tilted toward the window, breath fogging up the glass. She had piano lessons every Tuesday, just like her mom had wanted. I kept it going after Marcy died, not because Sophie loved music, but because it was something steady, something normal. That stretch of highway past Birch Creek was always quiet. Pines lined both sides like old soldiers watching over you, and the road curved just enough to keep you from feeling safe. I knew that part well. Then I saw them. A woman, standing on the gravel shoulder drenched. She was holding the hand of a child, maybe 5 or 6. The kid wore an oversized hoodie soaked to the bone, hood slipping off her small head. Her sneakers were muddy. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, met mine for half a second before she turned back to her mother, or whoever she was. I passed them. My first instinct was to keep driving. Too many stories on the news, too many what-ifs. But before I could finish that thought, my foot hit the brake like it had its own brain. The truck jerked to a stop. Sophie stirred. "Daddy?" she mumbled. "It's okay," I said, not sure if I meant it. I reversed slowly, the taillights glowing red against the gray curtain of rain. I rolled down my window. Water splashed in. "You two all right?" I called out. The woman turned, slow and guarded. Army fatigue jacket. Short hair, jaw clenched. Her arm wrapped around the child protectively. Her eyes were hard to read, somewhere between fight and flee. "We're trying to get to the shelter," she said, "before it closes." I looked at the girl again, shivering. No umbrella, no chance of making it anywhere on foot. "You're not going to get there in this weather," I said. Then I took a breath. "Look, I got a kid in the back. I'm not a creep. Just get in. Warm up." The woman hesitated. Her hand tightened on her daughter's. I saw the 1,000 calculations in her eyes. Then Sophie rolled down her window and stuck her head out. "It's okay," she said. In that way only kids can say and mean it. "We have snacks." The woman blinked. Then, almost reluctantly, she cracked half a smile. "She's persuasive," she muttered. "I've got soup back home," I added. "Not fancy, but it's hot and dry." She finally nodded, scooped the girl up into her arms, opened the back door and climbed in. "I'm Lena," she said, "and this is Riley." I nodded once. "Chris, that's Sophie." We didn't talk much the rest of the ride, just the sounds of the road and the rain, and the soft crunch of goldfish, crackers from the back seat. But I already knew something was shifting. I just didn't know yet. This was not the night I helped a stranger. It was the night 2 strangers helped me remember what hope felt like. I never thought much about the porch light. I turned it on out of habit. Every night, same time, like some quiet ritual I couldn't explain. After Marcy died, I guess I just kept doing it. Like maybe she'd still find her way home. That night, when I pulled up to the cabin, it was already glowing, soft, amber, warm against the rain-soaked dark. Sophie hopped out first, boots splashing in the puddles, then ran up the steps like it was any other night. For her, maybe it was. Lena stepped out next, slower, holding Riley close, to her chest. She didn't look up at the house, she looked around it like she was scanning for exits, measuring windows, checking shadows. She hadn't let go of the kid. Not once. Not even to adjust her coat. I opened the front door and stood back, giving her space. No words. Just the door and the light. An invitation, not a demand. She walked in cautiously. Shoes, leaving wet prints on the wood floor. Riley's head was buried into her shoulder. I closed the door behind us. The rain softened against the roof. Still loud, but somehow distant. The cabin held the kind of silence that felt like it was holding its breath. Bathroom's down the hall, I said, nodding left. Towels in the closet, kitchen's through there. She didn't answer, just moved forward like a soldier entering unfamiliar ground. She hadn't taken off her boots. I noticed, but said nothing. I poured water into a kettle, lit the stove. Soup'll be ready in a few. Tomato and lentil, not everyone's favorite. Still nothing. Sophie and Riley disappeared into the corner of the living room, drawn to the toy shelf I had built when Marcy was still alive. Two little girls, strangers 5 minutes ago, now shoulder to shoulder, whispering over crayons. Lena finally sat down, on the edge of the bench by the table, straight-backed, eyes on the doorway. You don't have to be on alert, I said quietly. She met my eyes, then looked away just as quick. You live out here alone? Yeah, I said. Just me and Sophie. Your wife? I nodded once. Marcy, cancer, 2 years now. She didn't say sorry. Not in words. But something in her jaw softened. Steam rose from the kettle. The room filled with cedar and salt and something almost like peace. You can stay the night, I said. I've got a pull-out in the guest room. Extra blankets. You and Riley can take it. She hesitated, then nodded. Thank you, she said, voice low, like she hadn't said that word in a long time. I brought her a mug of tea. She didn't drink it, just held it. Outside, the porch light still glowed. Inside, for the first time in a long time, someone else was in the house, and I wasn't waiting for them to leave. Some people talk when they're nervous. Fill the silence with questions, small talk, noise. Lena wasn't one of them, and I didn't ask. Not where she came from. Not why she was out there in the rain. Not why a woman with military posture and scars on her knuckles was walking a child down a back road like they were ghosts no one wanted to see. She didn't ask me anything either. No, what do you do for a living? No, why do you live out here alone with a kid? Just quiet. That heavy kind that makes you realize how much of your life has been background noise. Sophie and Riley settled fast, like kids do when they don't know they're supposed to be guarded. Sophie pulled out her collection of animal figurines and made up a game on the fly, Jungle Rescue. Riley joined without a word, her hands moving the plastic lion like she'd been there before. Like maybe she'd had to rescue something once too. Their laughter was small at first. Careful. Then louder. Freer. Lena kept her eyes on them, but not in a relaxed way. More like she was memorizing the room, the exit, the distance from the couch, to the front door. I noticed her flinch once, just slightly, when Sophie dropped a book on the hardwood. The thud wasn't loud, but her shoulders tensed like it was a gunshot. She caught me noticing, and for a second, I saw it. The split second, flash of something behind her eyes. Shame. Then it was gone. You okay? I asked. She nodded. Too fast. Yeah, just tired. I didn't push. Truth has to come when it's ready. Otherwise it comes out bleeding. Sophie looked up from the rug. Can Riley sleep in my room? She asked. I looked at Lena. She looked at Riley. Only if it's okay with you, she said. Riley nodded. That was it. Permission granted. I brought out 2 extra pillows. Lena helped set up a blanket nest on the floor beside Sophie's bed. Riley curled up in it like she'd done it 100 times before. Lena stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes heavy. She didn't say goodnight. She didn't need to. I turned off the hall light. The porch light stayed on. I didn't know much about this woman, but I knew how it felt to be lost, and to walk into someone else's warmth even just for one night. And sometimes that's enough to start something bigger than either of you meant to. The rain had stopped, but the silence it left behind felt louder, I turned off the lights one by one, checked the windows twice, habit more than worry, and left the porch light on like always. Some part of me hoped it meant something to someone, even if it was just me. Sophie was out cold, arms flung across her blanket like a starfish. Riley, curled up on a pile of quilts beside her, breathed slow and deep, the kind of sleep you only get when you've been too tired to dream. Lena stood in the hallway, back straight, eyes distant. "You sure you don't want the guest bed?" I asked. "It pulls out. Not fancy, but better than hardwood." "I'll stay here," she said. Closer to her, I didn't press. I handed her a blanket and she took it without looking at me. I went to my room. Tried to sleep. I couldn't. I didn't hear her footsteps, but I heard the front door creak open. Just a bit. The kind of sound the cabin only makes when someone's trying not to wake it. I got up. Quietly. Walked to the hallway. She was outside on the porch, standing beneath the glow of the light, not smoking, not pacing, just standing. Hands braced on the railing. Eyes fixed on the trees like they might start moving. I opened the door gently. "You good?" I asked. She didn't look at me. "Do you always leave the light on?" "Yeah, just always have." She nodded. Her voice was flat, but not unkind. "I used to hate the dark. Then I stopped noticing. Now I don't know which is worse." I didn't say anything. I just leaned against the doorframe and listened. "I don't sleep easy in closed rooms," she said. "Not since overseas. Afghanistan, I guessed. Or somewhere like it. A place where noise meant danger, where stillness meant something worse." "It's quiet out here," I said. She half laughed. "Dry. That's the problem." There was a long pause. The kind where you're not sure if you should walk away or stay and ruin the silence. "I lost a man once," she said. "In the field. 1 second he was there, the next he wasn't. I'd been staring at the same spot for hours. Swear to God I blinked and he was gone." She stopped. Her breath fogged in the porch light. "I still see the hole he left. Not the man. Just the absence." I didn't respond. Not with words. But I walked down the steps, turned to face her, and sat on the bottom stair. Rain had soaked through the wood, but I didn't care. I just sat. Kept her company from a distance she could tolerate. She didn't thank me. Didn't say anything else. Eventually, she came back inside. But before she did, she looked at the porch light one more time. Not like it comforted her, more like she was still trying to decide if she deserved to stand under it. The next morning, the world smelled like pine needles and leftover rain. Sophie and Riley were already up, their laughter echoing down the hall. They'd turned the living room into a battlefield of stuffed animals and colored paper. Riley wore a blanket like a cape. Sophie was her mission commander. I stood by the kitchen counter pouring coffee and watched them through the open doorway. They were deep in some imaginary rescue operation, 2 tiny heroes in pajamas. Lena sat on the far end of the couch, not part of the game, not interrupting it either, just there. Her back was straight, hands in her lap, eyes fixed on Riley. Not soft, not proud, something else, like she was memorizing the girl piece by piece. She didn't blink when Riley shrieked with joy, didn't smile when Sophie yelled, "We've got her, Captain." She just watched. I brought over a mug of coffee, set it on the table next to her. She didn't touch it. "Long night?" I asked. She gave the smallest nod, then turned back to Riley. "I haven't seen her like this in a while," she said. Her voice was quiet but sharper than before. "Free, stupid, safe." She said those 3 words like they didn't belong together. I sat down on the other end of the couch, careful not to get too close. "She seems to like Sophie," I offered. "She likes anyone who isn't afraid to talk first." There was silence, for a beat. Then another. Lena blinked and I saw it, just for a second. Her eyes glassed over. Not tears, just too full of memory. She was with me when it happened, she said. The last mission. Riley. She was already in country. I didn't have childcare lined up in time. That week everything hit at once. She paused. The game in the living room continued, Riley roaring like a dinosaur now. There was a blast. Not where we were, a block away, but the windows blew in. Glass everywhere. I jumped on top of her. Another pause. She blinked again. She didn't cry. Not once. That scared me more than anything. I didn't say anything. I knew better. I'm her mother, she said, like she was reminding herself. But sometimes, she looks at me like I'm someone else. I watched Riley laugh at something Sophie said. The girl had a giggle that climbed like a ladder, higher with each breath. She looks at you like you're home, I said. Lena shook her head slowly. She looks at me like I left. She stood up before I could answer. Walked to the window, looked out at the trees like they owed her something. She deserves better, she whispered. More than me. More than all this. Riley came running over then, clutching a drawing. Mom, look, it's us. And the light. Lena took the paper and stared. 3 stick figures under a crooked roof. A 4th person stood nearby, tall with a square around his head. Chris, apparently. And above all of them, a yellow circle with lines, shooting out, the porch light. She nodded, patted Riley's head, and said nothing. After Riley skipped away, Lena folded the drawing in half, slid it into the inside pocket of her jacket, like she wasn't sure if she'd get another one. I've always believed people reveal more when they're not trying to say anything. Later that afternoon, I found Lena at the kitchen table, filling out a form from the community shelter, temporary housing application printed in triplicate. Riley was napping, Sophie drawing spaceships on the floor. Lena had pulled her hair into a tight knot. Her sleeves were rolled up, arms lean, scarred, a faint burn mark near her wrist. The kind of mark you don't get from cooking or crafts. That was the first thing I noticed. The second thing, she was writing with her left hand, not just scribbling, smooth cursive, practiced, fluid. I stood behind her for a second longer than I probably should have, just watching the way she moved. Then I walked past her to the sink and started rinsing out mugs. You left-handed? I asked casually. Yep, she said, eyes still on the paper. I didn't say anything else, but something in me filed it away. Earlier, that morning when we'd been cleaning up after breakfast, she'd grabbed a knife to cut apples for the girls, and I remembered clearly she'd used her right hand. Fast, confident, like it was instinct. It wasn't conclusive, but it didn't fit. A few hours later, we played a board game with the kids, something simple with dice and colored pawns. At one point, Lena reached out to flick a piece, with her right hand again, unthinking. I paid attention. She caught me watching. What? She said, guarded. Nothing. Just... You switch hands a lot, I said lightly. Ambidextrous? She paused. Yeah. Comes from years of field work. Gotta be ready either way. She said, it quick. Too quick. Not a lie. But not a truth she wanted to sit in either. It wasn't just the hands. It was her walk. Quiet. Weight balanced on the balls of her feet. The way she moved around corners like she was clearing them. The way she kept Riley in her peripheral vision at all times. Even when she smiled, I'd seen that before. Not in real life, but in the eyes of returning vets I worked with on broken AC units at the VA clinic. The kind of body language you carry after enough time in uniform. After enough days where everything could explode. I didn't push it. I just stored the question in a quiet corner of my brain alongside others. Why was she walking on a rural highway with a child in the rain? Why did she flinch at soft sounds? Why did her voice change whenever Riley wasn't in the room? That night after the girls went to bed, Lena stayed up reading an old book from the shelf. Her eyes moved, but I could tell her thoughts were somewhere else. Somewhere dusty, loud, far away. I wanted to ask, but I didn't. Instead, I said, You can stay as long as you need. No rent, no rules. Just honesty. She looked at me for a long second, then nodded. But her eyes never left the page. And for the first time since she arrived, I realized I wasn't sure who I had let into my house. But more than that, I wasn't sure she knew who she was anymore either. The envelope was thin. Just one page, maybe two. No return address, just a government seal and her name printed in stark black letters. Lena found it in the mailbox around noon. She didn't open it right away, just stared at it, thumb grazing the crease. I was fixing the front step, hammer in hand, when she walked past me without a word and went inside. It wasn't until later, after the girls had gone out back to play, that I saw her sitting at the kitchen table again. Same spot as the day before. The envelope torn open now. The letter laid flat, like it might change its mind if she stared hard enough. I didn't mean to read it, but I saw the heading. We regret to inform you. That was enough. She didn't look up when I stepped in. They said I'm unstable, she said quietly. Unfit for transitional housing. Possible PTSD, unresolved trauma, concern for dependent child. She laughed once, sharp, bitter, almost a cough. I followed protocol, submitted everything. 2 years of clean history, Riley's medical records, my DD-214, counseling logs, and still, her voice cracked there. Not loud, not dramatic, just a fracture. They don't say no because you're dangerous, she muttered. They say no because you make them uncomfortable. I sat down across from her, slowly. Careful. What do you want to do? I asked. She looked up then. Really, looked. Her eyes were clear but far away. I wanted to get out of the system, just disappear into something simple. Start over, grow things, fix fences, be someone my daughter doesn't have to lie about at school. She pushed the letter toward me. You know what this says? It says I'm not safe, not stable, that maybe Riley deserves better. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. Do you believe that? I asked. She hesitated. I don't know. That landed harder than any yes or no. I had a plan, she whispered. Get approved, get a job at the co-op, keep her close to normal, keep myself invisible, not ask for too much, just enough. But they looked at the file and didn't see a mother. They saw a liability. She stood up then, restless, pacing in small measured steps. I never asked for sympathy, never told them what really happened over there. I didn't want pity. I just wanted a damn roof. I stood too. Not to stop her, just to say I was still there. You have one, I said. Here. She shook her head. Temporary kindness isn't the same as security. No, I said. But it's something, and you've got more of that than they do. That made her pause. Riley's laughter came through the screen door, light and real. Sophie was chasing her with a garden hose, both of them soaked and screaming with joy. Lena looked toward the sound but didn't move. You're not unstable, I said. You're tired. That's not the same. She didn't answer, but her shoulders relaxed, just a little. Later that night, she burned the letter in the fireplace, stood there as it curled into ash. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. That night, Lena didn't sit on the porch. She sat by the fire, knees pulled up, arms wrapped tight around them like she was holding herself together. Riley had gone to bed early. Sophie, too. The house was quiet, just the soft crackle of burning wood. I didn't say anything, just sat nearby. Enough distance to not crowd her. Close enough if she needed noise that wasn't memory. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, do you ever make the right decision and hate yourself for it anyway? I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't crying. She was past that. Whatever lived in her now didn't leak. It carved itself into her voice. I made a call, she said. I had to pick. 2 wounded. Both mine. One was bleeding fast, visible, loud, critical. The other, quiet. Still conscious. Stable vitals. The textbook choice was obvious. Her voice didn't shake. It stiffened, like she was bracing for her own words. I picked the man with the chest wound. I sent my team to lift him, radioed for medevac, set a line, stabilized. She took a breath. Not for air, for courage. The quiet one was Nora's wife, the one with stable vitals. She went into shock, internal bleeding, died 37 minutes later. She stared at the fire. I did everything right, every step according to protocol, and I still killed her. Silence. I don't dream about the one we saved, she said. I dream about the moment I turned away, about the look in her eyes. She knew, she fucking knew. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, fingers locked. Nora never blamed me, not once. Said I saved the one I had the best chance to save. But I see her face every time Riley gets quiet. I hear her last breath in the way silence falls after a slammed door. I didn't know what to say. So I said the only thing that felt honest. Would you do it differently now? She turned to me, not defensive, just exposed. If I say yes, I'm saying I choose love over logic. If I say no, I'm a coward who hides behind rules. Then she whispered, I don't know what kind of mother that makes me. That sentence, it hung there. Not just sad, heavy, real. Because the truth is, people like Lena don't break the way movies say they do. They don't scream or shatter. They freeze. They carry it. And it leaks out in the way they can't hug their kid too long, or how they flinch at the sound of metal on tile, or how they don't trust warm rooms because they know how fast warmth can turn to flame. Lena got up, walked to the window. Arms crossed again. Same posture, same tension, but something softer now. I've never told Riley any of this, she said. She just thinks I came home because I missed her. She exhaled. I let her believe that. Because I need her to see me as someone worth staying for. Outside, the porch light cast a faint glow on the wet grass. It flickered once, just the power adjusting, but Lena stared like it meant more. Do you think people like us deserve peace? She asked. I think people like us have to build it, I said. One good moment at a time. She didn't nod. But she didn't walk away, either. She just stood there, watching the light, like maybe, just maybe, it could hold back the dark long enough for her to believe it. We didn't talk for a while after that. Just the sound of the fire settling and the wind brushing against the windows. She stayed by the glass. I stayed in the chair. Two people sitting in the same silence, but for once it didn't feel lonely. She'd cracked herself open hours ago. Now it was my turn, and I knew it. My wife's name was Marcy, I said, voice low. She liked red wine and sci-fi books and hated flowers because she thought they were funeral decorations pretending to be romance. That got the faintest smile out of Lena. Just a twitch. But it was something. She was diagnosed late, stage 4 pancreatic. Doctor told us it was a matter of months. I paused. Let that settle. It still didn't sound real, even after 2 years. We tried everything. Chemo, clinical trials, special diets, meditation. Every possible version of hope money could buy. I looked over. Lena was still, eyes closed, but listening. In the end, she stopped treatment. Said she didn't want Sophie to remember her as a ghost in the living room. I swallowed, hard. She waited until I took Sophie to her piano recital. First one. When we came home, she was already gone. Lena didn't move, but her jaw clenched. Subtle, tight. She left a note. Said, "Don't keep the house dark. I don't want Sophie to grow up thinking the end of something means it has to stay quiet." That was the first time I ever said that out loud. The porch light had flickered again earlier. I hadn't thought much of it. But now it felt like a heartbeat. I kept the light on every night after that, I said. Not for her, not for me, just because something needed to stay warm. Lena turned from the window then, eyes soft but unreadable. "You think she'd still recognize the man you are now?" she asked. I nodded, slowly. "Yeah. But I don't think she'd be proud of how long I've been standing still." She took that in. Let it settle. You haven't, she said. I looked at her. You stopped for us, she continued. That night. On the road. You could have kept driving. I didn't stop because I'm good, I said. I stopped because Riley looked like Sophie, and because the rain made everything feel like I didn't want to be alone anymore. Still, Lena said. You stopped. She walked back toward the fire. Sat down across from me. No armor this time, just skin and breath and whatever was. Left after grief does its worst. We didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. Sometimes the people who've hurt the most don't ask for forgiveness. They just want someone to sit beside them without asking questions. And that night, under the porch light's hum, I think we both gave each other that much. The phone rang just after breakfast. Lena had stepped outside with her coffee. Sophie and Riley were still in pajamas, drawing chalk flowers on the back porch. I picked up the call because I thought it might be for me. It wasn't. A voice, female, firm, and somehow familiar even in its distance. This is Nora. That name didn't mean anything to me at first, but when I walked outside and handed Lena the phone, her whole body changed. She didn't say hello right away, just stared at the phone like it was something alive. Then she took it. Her voice was neutral. Military neutral. Nora. Hey. She walked away while she talked, down the steps through the pines. I couldn't hear her words anymore, but I didn't need to. You can read certain kinds of conversations from posture alone. One hand on her hip, pacing in slow half circles, head tilted forward like she was listening too hard. She was gone 20 minutes. When she came back, her face was unreadable, but not calm, not settled. It was the look of someone who'd just been offered a choice they didn't think they deserved. I didn't ask. She sat down at the edge of the porch, Riley still chalking beside her. For a long time, she said nothing. Just picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. Then finally, she wants me in New Mexico. 6-week contract, peer support program for vets and spouses. Teaching, coaching, whatever else comes up. I nodded slowly. You gonna take it? She shrugged. She says I'm the only one who can speak to the wives without sounding like I'm reading a script. Because I've been one, and because I left one behind. Her voice caught on that last sentence, but she didn't stop. She wants me to train a guy named Harper. He's new, green, motivated, and he's also... She paused. He's the husband. It took me a beat to understand. Then I did. The man whose wife Lena didn't save. The man who had every reason to hate her, and maybe never would. You'd see him? I asked. She nodded. Weekly sessions, group, some one-on-one. I waited. I haven't been back there since I got discharged, she said. Everything in me wants to say no, stay here, safe. She looked up at me, and I could see it, the old fight rising behind her eyes again. But if I don't go, I stay this version of myself, the one who hides, and I'm so goddamn tired of hiding. I didn't stop her. Didn't try to talk her out of it. Because sometimes, strength doesn't come from staying. It comes from walking straight into the place that broke you, and refusing to let it finish the job. That night, she packed a small bag. No speeches, no promises, no, I'll be back. Just one folded note for Riley, and a glance at me that said more than any goodbye ever could. She left before sunrise, didn't wake anyone except me, and I knew why, because I was the only one who'd leave the porch light on. It was Sophie who handed me the drawing. She came into the kitchen, barefoot and serious, holding the paper like it was something sacred. No glitter, no stickers, just thick crayons and the weight of something too big for her hands. Riley drew this, she said, but she didn't want to give it to anyone. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and took it. 4 figures stood under the porch light. Me, Sophie, Riley, and Lena. The outlines were clear. Riley had drawn herself with pink shoes and curly lines for hair. Sophie had a purple crown and the biggest smile. I stood tall in the middle, holding a mug. Somehow she remembered I always had coffee. And Lena. Lena was drawn without a face. No eyes, no mouth. Just the shape of her body, her coat, her boots, her hand holding Riley's. But where the face should have been, there was nothing. Just blank space, except above her, right above Lena's figure. Riley had drawn a halo of yellow, not like an angel, more like the porch light. Big, radiating, bright. I stared at it longer than I meant to. She didn't forget her, Sophie said quietly. She just didn't want to guess wrong. I nodded. My throat tightened. She's still little, but she knows when someone disappears on purpose, Sophie added, like it was something she'd been waiting to say. I sat down at the table, unfolded the rest of the paper. Riley had filled the sky with stars. Not perfect ones, just dots, scattered like freckles. Some had lines connecting them, like she was trying to find shapes in the chaos. I don't know what made me say it, but I looked at Sophie and asked, "Does Riley talk about her?" Sophie shrugged. She says her mom's coming back when the light stops blinking. I froze. "What do you mean blinking?" Sophie pointed out the window. "It flickers sometimes. But Riley says it's just because her mom's thinking." My hand gripped the edge of the table. I'd been meaning to fix that bulb for weeks, figured it was just loose wiring. But now I couldn't unhear that. "She said the light is how she knows it's still okay to come back," Sophie whispered. There was a pause. "Are you gonna turn it off?" I shook my head. No hesitation. Not tonight. I folded the drawing and tucked it into the drawer by the sink. Not to hide it, but to keep it. Like a promise I didn't know how to say out loud. Because Riley hadn't drawn her mother's face. But she'd drawn the light, and maybe for a child that was enough to believe someone was still out there. Not gone, not lost, just thinking. She left the way people do when they're afraid they might change their mind. No long hugs, no tearful goodbye, no take care of her. Just a light knock on my bedroom door before dawn, and her voice, steady, low. "I'm going." By the time I stepped outside, the sun hadn't even touched the trees. Fog hugged the ground. The gravel crackled under her boots as she loaded the last bag into the back of a borrowed truck. Riley was still asleep. I didn't ask why Lena didn't wake her. I already knew. Some goodbyes don't survive eye contact. She looked different in daylight. Not softer, just more complete. Like the decision had carved something clean inside her. Not peace. Not yet, but a kind of direction. I held out the key. Not to the truck, to the house. She stared at it. "What's this for?" "If you come back late, or if you don't want to knock," I said, "or if it's raining again." She didn't reach for it, so I set it gently on the porch railing. She looked down, then back up at me. That same unreadable gaze. But I saw something behind it now. Gratitude with sharp edges. "I don't know when I'll be back," she said. "I know," I answered. We stood there, the fog between us like unfinished conversation. "You trust me?" she asked. Not defiant, honest. "With Riley?" "No, with you." It was the first time she'd asked anything for herself. I nodded. "Once." Then, softer than before. "I wouldn't leave the light on if I didn't." She finally picked up the key. Didn't pocket it, just held it. Like she wasn't ready to believe. In it fully, but couldn't leave it behind either. "I don't make promises," she said. "I don't wait for them." The truck door creaked. She paused before climbing in. "Tell Riley. Whatever makes her feel strongest." "I will." She started the engine, pulled onto the dirt road without looking back. And just like that, she was gone. No timeline. No return. Date. Just the porch light, still on, and one girl, still sleeping in the room down the hall, not knowing her mother had just chosen to walk into the fire. Not away from her, but maybe, finally, toward herself. It wasn't that I didn't know how to care for Riley. I just didn't know how to do it without checking my phone every 30 minutes for a message that never came. Breakfast was the same as always. Eggs, toast, sliced, fruit in uneven chunks. Riley ate in silence. Sophie tried to fill the space with talk about school and bugs and space aliens, but it floated in the air like radio static, background noise. Riley barely touched her food. I packed their lunches, tied shoelaces, wiped yogurt off a chin that didn't belong to mine, but it all felt automatic, like I was living someone else's routine. Lena hadn't called. No texts. No update. No, made it safe. No, Riley okay? Not even a thumbs-up emoji. Just silence. And yeah, I told her I didn't wait on promises. But that didn't mean I wasn't listening for a knock that never came. After the kids left for school, the house got quiet in that thick way, like grief had found its way back through the floorboards. I did what I always do when the stillness starts pressing. In chores, swept the porch, washed bedding, changed the oil in the truck, replaced the bulb in the porch light. It still flickered. I left it that way. Around noon, I sat on the edge of the couch and looked at my phone again. Nothing. No signal lost. No missed call. Just nothing. It would have been easier if she'd said goodbye like she meant it. Easier if she slammed a door, made it clear this wasn't her life. But she didn't. She left like someone who hoped they were making the right mistake. And now here I was trying to make a peanut butter sandwich with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I sat back in the chair, watched the light shift across the wooden floor, and I hated how quiet it was. Not because it hurt, but because I was starting to get used to it again, and that scared the hell out of me. I don't talk about Marcy much. People either get too quiet or too polite when they hear the word cancer. But the truth is, and it wasn't the cancer that took her first, it was the waiting, the slow hours between test results, the way she stared at the calendar like it owed her something, the morning she stopped putting on makeup, the day she packed her piano books into a cardboard box and said, "I want Sophie to remember me moving, not fading." I used to tell people, she died peacefully, that I was holding her hand, that Sophie was asleep in the next room, the house soft with lullabies and light. But that's not true. The truth is, she died alone. By choice. She waited for us to leave, me, Sophie, the nurse, and then she slipped away like someone sneaking out of a bad party. No drama, no final words, just stillness. When I came home from Sophie's recital, the lights were still on. The tea she never drank was cold on the nightstand. The TV was playing a movie she used to love but hadn't watched in months. And she was gone. I used to be angry about that. Still am, if I'm honest, because I think she knew I wouldn't let her go. I would have begged, bargained, sat beside her like a man watching a clock run out. So she didn't give me the chance. People call that brave. I don't know. Maybe it's just clean. Sometimes I play the song she liked most, an old instrumental from a French film. No lyrics, just piano and strings and a few breaths of silence in between. It's not sad, but it leaves this space inside you, like something is missing, like the music never ends. It just forgets where it was going. Sophie used to ask me why. I always played it when I thought she wasn't listening. I told her it helped me think that was a lie too. The real reason is I can't remember what Marcy's voice sounded like at the end. But I remember the song, note for note. Riley walked in while I was playing it again today. She didn't say anything, just stood there, one hand on the doorway, eyes steady. "Do you miss her every day?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I don't know if it's every day, I said. But the days I don't, I feel guilty. Like I forgot something important. Riley nodded once, then said, "My mom leaves light behind. You leave music." She sat next to me on the couch, swinging, her legs, small and certain. She said the quiet doesn't scare her when she knows someone's still thinking. I looked down at her. She said that? No, she shrugged. But I think she wanted to. We sat there, just the music playing, No words, no clean endings, just sound filling the spaces we were too human to fix. I never planned to write him. I told myself it wouldn't help him, wouldn't help me. Just rip something open that barely had a scab. But in the cheap motel room outside Santa Fe, with Riley's drawing folded in my jacket and the desert pressing its silence against the walls, I picked up the pen, not because I had something to say, but because I couldn't carry it all in my chest anymore. Dear Harper, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I'm not writing to justify anything. I won't insult you with excuses. Your wife, Elena, was my friend. More than that, she was my steady, my anchor when the mission got muddy and the ground didn't feel real. She could read the sky like a map and made coffee so strong it could kill a mule. I loved her. Not the way you did, but in the way soldiers love the ones who bleed beside them. And maybe that makes this harder. Maybe that makes it worse. You already know the facts. You got the autopsy, the chain of command, the summary report. But there are things they didn't put on paper. Things that don't fit in official boxes, like the way she smiled at me that morning. Told me not to get sentimental, that if it went bad I should pick the one that had a shot. I thought she was joking. We always joked about that. If I'm bleeding, just make it quick, or I don't need both kidneys anyway. It was dark humor. You know the kind. But maybe she knew. Maybe she saw the blast coming before any of us did. When it happened, the room went white. I couldn't hear, couldn't feel my hands, just the weight of bodies, screams that came in slow motion. I found her under the rubble, eyes open, breathing shallow. She looked at me. No panic, no fear, just peace. I knew I had to choose. I chose the one bleeding out loud, the one the textbook told me to save. Made the right call, but it was the wrong one for her and for you. I've replayed it 1,000 times, wondered if I hesitated, if I didn't fight hard enough. If there was a part of me that couldn't imagine watching her die in my arms, so I let someone else carry the weight of loss. You. That's not fair, and I know it. But grief isn't fair. It just is. I want you to know, she mattered. She wasn't just a casualty. She was the rhythm of our team, the voice of reason, the one who made us all feel a little more human in a place designed to erase. That you lost her once. I've lost her every day since. I'm in New Mexico now, teaching new kids how to wear uniforms without forgetting who they are underneath. They think I'm strong. But some nights, I hear your wife's voice telling me I'm just surviving, not living. I keep writing this letter, Harper, because I need to believe someone out there still says her name out loud, even if it's in anger, even if it's in silence, even if it's just once. With regret, Lena didn't seal the envelope. Didn't send it. Just folded it. Slipped it into the same pocket where I kept the key Chris gave me. Because some things aren't meant to be delivered. Some truths just need to be said, even if only to the air around you. The rain came back the way grief does. Sudden, heavy, familiar. I just finished cleaning up the dinner plates. Riley's seat still at the table even though she'd been gone 6 weeks. Sophie was brushing her teeth upstairs, humming off-key, and the porch light buzzed in that same rhythm it always had. I was standing by the window when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 taps, not frantic, not hesitant, just steady. I didn't move at first, didn't want it too much. But then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. I opened the door. She was there, Lena, soaked, hair matted to her face, jacket darker from the rain. Riley asleep in her arms, her head tucked beneath her mother's chin, like nothing in the world could shake her loose. Neither of them spoke. Lena didn't smile, didn't cry. She just looked at me like the porch light was brighter than she remembered. I stepped aside without saying a word. She walked in. The floor creaked beneath her boots. Riley stirred but didn't wake. Sophie's footsteps thudded down, the stairs behind me, but she stopped when she saw who it was. Nobody moved for a second. Then Sophie whispered, "You came back." Lena nodded. just once. I closed the door, locked it. Not because of danger, but because some things deserve to be kept in. She laid Riley gently on the couch, covered her with the blanket that had never been moved. And then she stood there. Not like a guest, not like someone waiting for permission, just a person who had finally run out of distance. I went to the kitchen, poured 2 mugs of tea, habit by now. I set one in front of her at the table. She sat without a word, steam curled up between us. I didn't ask how New Mexico was, didn't ask why she came back, didn't ask what it meant. I just waited. And finally, softly, she said, "He forgave me." I didn't have to ask who. She kept her hands wrapped around the mug like it anchored her. He said, "The reason he blamed me wasn't because I made the wrong call. It's because I lived, and she didn't." Her voice cracked, not with weakness, but release. "I didn't write back," she added. "But I wrote. For once, I wrote the truth." Outside, the rain hit the roof in rhythm. Inside, Riley turned over and mumbled something soft in her sleep. Lena looked down at her daughter, then at me, and finally said, "I didn't come back for safety." I nodded. "I know. I came back because this is the only place I didn't feel like I had to disappear to be loved." I looked at her for a long time. Then I stood, walked to the hall closet, opened the drawer where I kept things that mattered, and pulled out the key. I didn't hand it to her this time. I just set it on the table, and for the first time she reached for it without hesitation. The kids were asleep. The house had gone still in that way it only does when everyone under the roof finally trusts the silence. No distant crying, no pacing footsteps, just breath, even, steady. Lena stood in the doorway of the living room, arms crossed, not defensive, just unsure. I was at the sink again, rinsing 2 chipped mugs. "Habit. Can't sleep?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just walked in, sat down at the table. No armor tonight, no posture. Just a tired woman who'd stopped trying to hold herself up with anything but truth. She didn't speak for a while. I didn't push. Then quietly she said, "You know what no one ever tells you about survival?" I looked at her, waited, that it doesn't feel like winning. She traced the rim of the mug with her finger. Light, like the touch might shatter, something. I walked out of there 6 weeks ago thinking I was doing the brave thing, facing it, owning it, helping others find their footing. But the whole time, I felt like I was still ducking behind something. I sat down across from her, let her keep going. I told Harper the truth, told those recruits about grief, guilt, trigger discipline, parenting with PTSD. They all nodded like I was teaching them something, like I had answers. She looked up at me now, clear-eyed. But I hadn't said a single real thing to my daughter, not one. The porch light flickered outside, just once. She didn't look. I used to think I was protecting Riley by not letting her see me break. But the more I pretended to be whole, the more she learned to hide her own pieces. Her hands were still, flat on the table. I saw her face in the mirror this morning, that same tight jaw, that same silence. She's carrying weight I never meant to hand down. And then came the part she hadn't said out loud before. But tonight, before bed, she looked at me and she said, "You don't have to protect me all the time, Mom. I'm already strong." She let that sit. I asked her why she thought that. "What did she say?" I asked. Lena's voice barely a whisper. She said, "Because you came back even though you were scared, and you looked at me when you said goodnight." Lena looked up at me then. I didn't realize how long I'd been avoiding her eyes. She exhaled. A full breath. Like she hadn't taken one in weeks. "I'm not fixed, Chris. I'm still loud in my head. Still half ready to run every time a door shuts too hard. But tonight..." I looked her in the face, and I didn't flinch. I nodded. Slowly. You looked straight at her. She nodded back. I did. I stood, walked to the drawer near the hallway, pulled out a folded piece of paper, unfolded it slowly. Riley's drawing. The one with the faceless mother and the light. I slid it across the table. She'll draw your face next time, I said. Lena touched the paper. Gently. Maybe. Then she looked up at me again. But if she doesn't, I'll still be here. Lena left the house at exactly 6:13 a.m., not in a rush. But not dragging her feet either. Lunchbox in one hand, canvas toed over her shoulder. Her steps were careful, like she was testing the ground with every stride. I stood at the kitchen window with a mug of coffee, watching her pause at the last step on the porch. She didn't turn around, didn't wave, just stood there for a second like checking with herself, and then walked into the gray morning. Riley was still asleep. So was Sophie. They'd both gotten used to Lena being part of the house now. Not as a guest, not even as a surprise, just a shape that fit. No one asked for updates. Kids don't need explanations when the energy feels right. Lena had taken a job at the County Community Support Center. Not glamorous, not easy. She'd be doing intake, mental health screenings, walking people through paper-thin solutions to heavy problems. A place where people only show up when they've run out of other places, where you have to believe in healing even if you're still bleeding underneath. That afternoon, I picked Riley up late. The rain had started up again. On the way back, sirens screamed down the main road, ambulance, maybe two, loud, sudden, close. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw Lena on the porch, sitting on the edge of the bench, hands clenched in her lap, staring at nothing. I didn't speak at first, just sat beside her, gave her space to choose the silence or break it. Eventually, she said, "They brought in a toddler, 3 years old, choked on a grape in the car. Dad swerved to avoid a crash. Mom was in the back seat." Her voice was flat, factual, detached in the way people speak when they're trying not to re-feel something. I wasn't scared of the blood, not even the kid's face. She exhaled a rough breath. It was the siren. Same tone, same rhythm. It sounded just like the one from that day with Elena. I said nothing, just waited. She lived, Lena added. The kid, but I spent 11 minutes hiding in a bathroom stall before I could feel my legs again. She didn't call it a panic attack, she called it my body moving faster than my brain. That night, Riley asked if work had been fun. Lena smiled and nodded, but I saw the tiny tremble in her fingertips under the table. Small, like a loose wire that hadn't been tucked back in. Still, she went back the next day. And the next. It wasn't victory. It was just a woman learning how to live without, fighting every second, and sometimes that's the closest thing to a miracle we get. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of dry, windy afternoon that makes every pine needle feel like a fuse waiting to light. I was fixing the shed roof when my phone rang. Unknown number, county line, all I caught was, "Lena's okay, but something happened." By the time I reached the clinic, she was already in a fresh t-shirt, sitting on a cot with a bandage around her palm and soot on her jeans. She didn't look scared. She looked exhausted. The kind of tired that doesn't come from running, but from remembering what it means to run towards something again. It started in a trailer park outside the city limits. A short circuit, grease on the stovetop, wind, the fire moved fast. Kids alone in one of the units, mom at work, neighbors screaming. Chaos. Lena had just gotten off her shift at the outreach center, walking to her car when she heard it. Crackling, screaming, the sharp metallic breath of fire eating cheap insulation. People were standing around, yelling, filming, panicking, but no one was moving. So she did. She told me the story later, voice calm, eyes forward like she didn't want to make a big thing of it. There were toys outside. I figured if they were in there, they were probably small. She didn't wait. She kicked the door open with her boot and crawled in low. Smoke thick, heat close. One kid was crying under a table, the other frozen by the microwave, eyes huge, lungs already closing. She grabbed both, wrapped one in her jacket, tucked the other under her arm like a football, ran blind through flame and cough and instinct. The whole thing took less than 3 minutes, but when she emerged, covered in ash, coughing hard, knees shaking, she wasn't thinking about glory. She was thinking about Elena. "I did it right this time," she whispered. "That was what broke me. Not the act. Not the danger, but the way she said it, like it had been waiting in her bones for years." The nurse gave her the all clear, just mild burns, smoke inhalation. I drove her home with the windows cracked. She didn't speak much, just held a bottle of water and stared at the road. That night, Riley curled up in her lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. Sophie brought her a popsicle from the freezer, blue raspberry, and said, "You smell like the barbecue pit." Lena laughed, not loud, but real, and I swear to God it was the first time I'd ever heard it without the edge of grief in it. Later, after the kids went to bed, I sat next to her on the porch. The light buzzed above us. "You saved them," I said. "I did." She didn't smile. She didn't need to. "It doesn't undo anything," she added. "Elena's still gone. That part doesn't change." I nodded. Let her keep going. But today, it felt like something balanced out. Just a little. She opened her hand. The bandage had started to loosen. Her skin was red, cracked in spots, but healing. I didn't freeze, I didn't hide. She looked up at me. And for the first time since that day, I didn't feel like a ghost. I didn't say anything. Instead, I reached out, not to hold her, not to fix her, just to let her know I was still here. She didn't pull away, and maybe for now that was enough. I kept it in the drawer by my bed for over 2 years. Hardcover, green leather, faded spine, Marcy's handwriting on the first page. "If I'm not around, just pretend this is me talking in my best mood." I never read it in full. Not because I was afraid of what she wrote, but because I knew the words would still sound like her. And I wasn't sure I could carry that version of her and still keep living in mine. But tonight I pulled it out, not because I was ready, but because Lena deserved to hear someone else say what I couldn't. She was outside again, same porch, same light. It had rained earlier and everything smelled like pine and iron. Riley and Sophie were inside laughing over a board game, their joy too loud to be careful. I sat beside her and handed her the book. She looked down at it, didn't touch it. "Your wife's?" I nodded. "I think she would have liked you." Lena raised an eyebrow. "She would have thought I was too angry." "Maybe," I said. "But she'd respect it." She respected pain that didn't pretend. Lena opened the journal slowly, flipped through a few pages, careful with the binding, then paused. "Pages folded," she said. "I marked that one," I replied. She read it silently. Her eyes moved, slow, lips pressed together. Then she read it again, aloud this time. Quiet, careful. "Maybe the people who feel the most lost are the ones closest to finding something worth staying for." She stopped. Didn't speak for a long while. I watched her hands, one still wrapped in gauze, the other steady now. No tremble. "You think she meant you?" Lena asked eventually. "I think she meant herself." Lena looked at me. And this time, her face didn't hold that wall of guilt, or the thin thread of apology always hovering behind her voice. Just softness, and the ache of finally being seen. "I've spent so long convincing myself I didn't deserve stillness," she said, "that I was better in motion, better when I'm fixing things or outrunning them." She closed the journal. "But lately, Riley looks at me like she's not afraid I'll leave, and I think maybe that's my version of staying." She handed the book back, but I pushed it gently toward her again. "Keep it." She blinked. "I don't need to read the rest," I said. "I remember her just fine. But you, Maybe you need someone in your corner who believed in messy people. Lena didn't say thank you. She just held the book like something warm, something earned. We sat there in the quiet that follows a real conversation. Not heavy, not awkward, just full. Then she asked me without looking, "Do you think we ever stop asking if we deserve the life we're in?" I took a breath. Let it out slow. I don't know. But I think if you have to ask, you probably already care enough to be part of it. She nodded, and for the first time, she leaned her head on my shoulder. Nothing romantic, nothing labeled, just the kind of weight you share when two people finally stop keeping score and just let themselves exist in the same moment without needing to prove anything. The sky was soft that day, blue with just enough clouds to remind you not everything has to be perfect to be beautiful. We drove out past the ridge to the little patch of meadow near the river, the one Sophie said looked like a place people would go to be themselves. Riley packed the napkins. Sophie brought a half-crushed bag of marshmallows. Lena made sandwiches, messy, overflowing, nothing like the ones she used to pack when her life ran on rules. We didn't plan anything, we just showed up, together. Sophie ran ahead, chasing grasshoppers. Riley followed barefoot. Lena started to stop her, but then didn't. Just smiled, soft and quiet. I laid out the blanket. She sat down beside me without asking, without hesitation. We watched the girls spin through the field, their voices rising in those bright, shapeless sounds kids make when nothing is wrong. After a while, Lena leaned back on her elbows, face to the sun. No uniform, no emergency, no watch on my wrist, she said. That's what freedom looks like, I said. She glanced over. That's what choice looks like. We sat in that silence, not the awkward kind, the kind that lets you breathe deeper. At some point, Riley wandered back with a tiny bouquet of crushed wildflowers. "Here," she said, dropping them in Lena's lap. Lena looked down, blinked once. "They're not perfect," Riley said, "but they're for you." And that's when Lena did something small, but big. She didn't say thank you, didn't cry. She just tucked one flower behind Riley's ear, then whispered, "I'll keep them forever." Later, Sophie asked if we were a family now. No one answered right away. She didn't push. She just kept chewing her sandwich and said, "Kind of feels like we are, even if nobody got married or anything." Riley nodded. "We don't need a cake." And Lena, after a long pause, said, "We don't need anything, except each other." It wasn't a line. It wasn't rehearsed. It was just true. That night, after the kids fell asleep in the backseat on the ride home, Lena reached over and rested her hand on mine. No words, no pressure, just stillness. I didn't squeeze back, but I didn't move either. Because love doesn't always need a name, a ring, or a vow. Sometimes, it's just four people under one sky with grass stains, a melted marshmallow, and nothing to run from. The porch light's still on. Even now, months later, with everyone home, with no one missing, no phone calls unanswered, I still switch it on when the sun starts to slip behind the pines. One night, Lena noticed. We'd just put the girls to bed. She walked out to the porch and leaned against the railing, arms folded. "You still turn it on," she said. It wasn't an accusation, just a fact. But I heard the question behind it. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I stepped outside and stood next to her, the gravel cool under my bare feet. "That light used to mean something," I said. "It used to mean someone was missing, that I was hoping maybe tonight she'd come back. Marcy, or later you and Riley." Lena didn't look at me, just watched the bugs orbit the bulb like tiny satellites. I used to tell myself it was for them, for you. But the truth is, I paused, listening to the quiet hum of the house behind us. I think I keep it on for me now. Lena turned slightly. "Why?" I exhaled through my nose. Not tired, just honest, because for a long time I made myself smaller in the dark. Grief does that. Regret does that. You start shrinking your joy, your noise, your hopes, just in case it draws attention you don't deserve. I looked at the light. Just a bulb. Simple. Faint. But when the light's on, I feel less like I'm hiding. Less like I'm waiting for something bad to show up. She didn't interrupt. It's not for someone coming back, I added. It's for the version of me that finally stopped flinching at shadows. She let that settle, then said quietly, I used to think healing would feel like a door unlocking, a key turning, a light flicking on once and for all. And now? I asked. She smiled, sad and soft. Now I think it's just the decision to stand still, to stop bracing for goodbye even when no one says I'm staying. I nodded. We stood there in the gentle halo of the bulb. Not bright, not dramatic, just enough to say, this is home. This is safe. You're allowed to stop running. Inside, Riley stirred in her sleep. Sophie mumbled something about stars, and I thought, maybe the light was never really about waiting. Maybe it was about not letting the dark have the last word. It was just before bedtime. The house had that warm, sleepy stillness. Dishes clean, towels drying, one last cartoon echoing from the other room. Lena was brushing Riley's hair, slow and gentle, like every stroke was a sentence she didn't need to say out loud. I was in the doorway, half smiling, half tired, watching, not interfering. Then Riley asked it. So casually it nearly passed unnoticed. Mom, if I go away for school when I'm big, will you still leave the porch light on? The brush paused in midair. Just for a second. Lena didn't answer right away. She tucked a curl behind Riley's ear, then asked, You planning to run off on us already? Riley giggled. No, but maybe one day. Like, to learn space things. Or to help animals. Well, Lena said softly, if you go save the world, I guess I'll have to leave a light on for the world saver. Riley seemed satisfied with that, but not fully. What if I don't come back for a long time, she asked, and this time Lena looked up at me. She didn't say anything with her mouth, but her eyes said it all. She remembers. She understands now. This light was never just for her. After Riley fell asleep, Lena came out to the porch. I followed. The night was clear. No rain, no wind, just stars, the kind you only see when everything else finally goes quiet. She reached for the light switch by the doorframe, held it. 3 seconds, she said. That's all it takes to turn it off. I nodded. 3 seconds. She didn't move. I almost turned it off once, she said. Back when we first left here, I was angry, guilty. I told myself I didn't need anyone waiting. And? I asked. I stood there with my finger on the switch for almost 5 minutes, she said. Why didn't you do it? She looked at the bulb above us, still glowing, soft and steady. Because deep, down, I wanted someone to still believe I might come home. She stepped away from the switch. Didn't touch it, and then she said the thing I didn't expect. If Riley ever leaves, for school or for space, or just because she needs to find herself, she paused. Voice low. I'll leave the light on. Not because I think she'll forget me, but because I want her to know she doesn't have to come back in the dark. I reached over, took her hand. Not as a gesture, just as presence. I think she already knows, I said. Lena nodded, once, but her hand held on anyway.